The combat arena smelled like ozone and scorched stone. The afternoon sun beat down on gray tiles marked with burn scars and impact craters from years of training exercises. Heat shimmered off the surface. The air tasted metallic, sharp, like lightning about to strike. Simulation wards lined the perimeter in glowing geometric patterns. Containment magic designed to keep training scenarios from spilling into actual danger. The wards hummed with constant power. A low thrumming that vibrated through the soles of my boots. Master Valen stood at the arena's edge with the detached patience of someone who'd watched students fail this exercise for decades. Gray hair, weathered face, arms crossed over combat leathers marked with old burns and claw marks. Her voice carried across the space without needing to shout.
Simulated horde scenario. 3 binders, no cleaver support. 15 chaos touch constructs will spawn in waves of 5. Your objective is containment and elimination, using amplification techniques only. Time limit, 10 minutes. Failure means dissolution for at least one of you in a real scenario. Begin when ready.
I stood with Marin and Jessa near the center of the arena. 3 binders who barely knew each other about to face simulated combat without the one thing that made horde scenarios survivable. A cleaver. Marin moved immediately. No hesitation. No discussion. She walked to the arena's north side with the casual confidence of someone who'd done this 100 times before. Her ink marks caught the sunlight. Black lacework shifting across bare arms. She flexed her fingers. The patterns rippled.
Liv, point position.
Her voice cut through the heat haze. Sharp, precise.
Your range exceeds mine. You'll engage first. I'll provide support casting from secondary position.
She glanced at Jessa without turning her head fully.
Jessa, support weaving, standard amplification protocols, and cease the preemptive apologizing. You're competent. Act like it.
Jessa clutched her notebook against her chest.
I wasn't going to. I know I tend to apologize, but I thought maybe this time I could just...
She stopped, took a breath.
Right, competent, acting like it, starting now.
Marin's lips curved. Dark amusement.
Adorable. Now move to eastern flank. Triangular formation. Classic suppression pattern.
I moved to the position she'd indicated. Point. Forward facing. The spot where initial contact happened. Where things got messy first. Jessa scurried to eastern position. Already flipping through her notebook. Muttering about optimal geometric configurations. The simulation wards flared. Reality rippled. 5 constructs materialized across the arena. Chaos touched. Wrong. Their forms were vaguely humanoid, but proportions were off. Too many joints. Limbs that bent wrong directions. Faces that were mostly mouths. They moved with jerky unpredictability. Not quite alive, but not quite dead either. Magical constructs designed to mimic real threats. They charged immediately.
Now,
Marin said. I gathered ink from my channels. Black oil seeping from fingertips. Rainbow threads forming. I cast a binding web toward the nearest 3 constructs. Standard containment pattern. The threads spread wide. Caught 2. The third dodged. Too fast. It kept coming. Marin's weaving hit it from the side. Her threads were darker than mine. Almost black-purple instead of rainbow. They wrapped the construct's limbs. Yanked hard. The thing hit the ground and thrashed.
Support!
Marin's voice was sharp. Jessa's amplification weaving spread across both our patterns. Stabilizing. Extending. The geometric precision making our binding stronger without adding power. Just like we'd practiced, the two constructs I'd caught dissolved under sustained binding pressure. The one Marin held struggled another few seconds before fragmenting. 5 seconds, 3 constructs down, 2 remaining in this wave. Not bad. The remaining 2 split up. Flanking pattern. One went left toward Jessa. One went right toward me. I threw a quick binding at mine. Caught its legs. It stumbled but didn't fall. These constructs were tougher than the first wave. The one targeting Jessa was almost on her. Jessa! I started to redirect my weaving.
Handled.
Marin's voice was flat. Her binding threads shot across the arena. Faster than I'd seen her cast before. They wrapped the construct mid-leap, pinned it against the ground with brutal efficiency. The threads tightened. The construct crumbled to dust. My construct broke free of my leg binding, charged again. I wove a more complex pattern. Layered bindings, multiple anchor points. The kind of thing that required concentration and time I didn't have. It worked. The construct froze, struggled, dissolved. First wave complete.
Second wave spawning.
Master Valen called. 5 more constructs materialized, larger than the first batch. Moving faster, we fell into rhythm. I took point. Caught the forward rushers. Marin provided support from angles I couldn't cover. Jessa's amplification kept our weavings stable. Extended their duration. Made each casting count. It was working. We were working. The withdrawal symptoms faded while I cast. The trembling in my hands steadied. The phantom itching quieted. My channels sang with purpose instead of craving. And it felt good. Not the euphoric transcendence of convergence. Not the reality-bending high of ritual casting. But good. Satisfying in ways that made me want to cast again. Made me want to weave another pattern. Test another technique. Feel that pleasant hum of magic flowing through channels that were designed for exactly this. All magic was addictive. That was the secret they didn't emphasize in training. Solo casting had its own pull, its own pleasure. Gentler than convergence, but still present, still calling. The simple satisfaction of using magic properly, of being useful, of feeling competent and powerful and alive. I wanted more of it, even knowing the ink was building. Even knowing each casting brought me closer to needing transfer. I wanted to keep casting. Wanted to feel my channels sing instead of scream with absence. This was how binders ended up in logistics burnout. Not from lack of pleasure. From chasing smaller highs that accumulated into catastrophic need. Death by 1,000 satisfying moments instead of one transcendent peak. Second wave dissolved. Third wave spawning. These constructs were different. Faster. More coordinated. They split into 2 groups immediately. 3 went for Marin. 2 came at me. Standard tactics wouldn't work. They were adapting. I needed something bigger. Something that could handle multiple targets simultaneously. Convergence level magic. The thought appeared fully formed. Inevitable. A binding collapse. The technique Dane had taught me, where you connected multiple targets with binding threads and then severed the nexus point. Simultaneous damage to everything linked. But that required a cleaver. Required someone to cut the nexus with massive power. I could do it alone. Probably if I poured enough ink into the initial binding. Made the threads strong enough that their collapse would damage the constructs without needing a cleaver's cut. It would work. I knew it would work. I started weaving before the rational part of my brain could object. Black oil flowed from my hands, more than I'd used all exercise. The rainbow threads formed thicker, denser. I connected all 5 constructs with binding links, wove them into a network, created the nexus point at the center. My channels burned, ink accumulation spiking, the familiar pleasure blooming alongside the pain. Almost there, I poured more power into the nexus, made it dense enough to collapse under its own weight.
Liv.
Jessa's voice, high, anxious.
That's too much power for...
The nexus collapsed. Wrong. I'd miscalculated. Used too much ink. The binding network didn't just damage the constructs. It exploded. Uncontrolled chaos rippling outward from the center. The threads whipped back toward me. Feedback I hadn't accounted for. The ink slammed into my channels. Months of careful rationing undone in seconds. Black marks erupted across my forearms, up my neck. My vision went dark at the edges. I hit the ground, knees first, then hands, gasping. The constructs were gone. All of them. Dissolved by the catastrophic binding collapse. But the ink slammed back into my channels. Feedback I hadn't accounted for. Black marks erupted across my forearms, up my neck. My vision went dark at the edges. I was dissolving. Had to be. The same sensation from the siege. Reality fragmenting. My body losing cohesion. Chaos overwhelming order until there was nothing left but shadow. Terror crashed through me. Cold. Absolute. Not again. Not here. Not in front of everyone. Someone grabbed my shoulder. Yanked me around. The touch was solid. Real. My body responded to physical contact. I wasn't dissolving. Relief hit so hard I almost sobbed. Just massive ink accumulation. Dangerous levels. The kind that needed transfer before I could cast again or risk actual dissolution. But not there yet. Still solid. Still real. Still salvageable. Marin. Her face was inches from mine. Expression twisted with fury.
What the actual fuck was that?
She didn't yell. Somehow that made it worse. The rage cold instead of hot. Precise. Cutting.
Academy peacocking bullshit. Pure ego. Zero tactical justification.
I opened my mouth. Closed it. Couldn't form words through the ink burning through my channels. My voice cracked. I thought...
You thought wrong.
Marin's grip on my shoulder tightened. Not painful, but firm. Grounding.
We were handling the scenario. 3 binders using proper amplification. Exactly what the exercise was designed to teach. And you decided to prove something instead.
Jessa appeared beside us, wringing her hands.
Maybe she was just, we don't know what she was trying to accomplish. There might have been a reason, a good reason. We shouldn't assume.
Marin rounded on her.
Stop.
Jessa flinched.
You're making excuses again.
Marin's voice went harder, colder.
She fucked up spectacularly. Acknowledging reality isn't cruelty.
The three of us stood in tense silence. The simulation wards hummed. Master Valen watched from the edge, not intervening, letting us work through it. I could feel the crossroads, the choice. I could defend myself, explain that I'd been trying to be useful, that I'd thought bigger magic would help, that I'd miscalculated but meant well. I could retreat into defensive pride, make excuses, blame the circumstances, or I could just admit the truth. You're right. The words cost me. Felt like stripping off armor. I was showing off, trying to prove I belong here. Marin's expression shifted, the fury draining away, replaced by something almost like approval.
Good. Honesty. How refreshing.
She released my shoulder, flipped her hair with theatrical flair, the ink marks on her arms catching light.
Now refrain from attempting suicide by casting again. I've grown rather fond of you.
The casual affection in the words hit harder than the criticism. I've grown rather fond of you. Like it was simple, uncomplicated. Like caring about someone didn't require complicated justification. Jessa shifted from foot to foot.
You do belong here.
Her voice was quiet but certain.
You don't have to. I mean, we already think you're really talented and smart and...
She flushed, ducked her head.
Sorry, I'm rambling. I just mean, you don't have to prove anything to us.
Master Valen called across the arena.
Exercise complete. Excessive power expenditure noted. Tactical assessment. Adequate outcome. Catastrophic methodology. Miss Harrow, report to medical for accumulation check. Dismissed.
We walked off the arena floor together. The afternoon sun still beating down. My channels still burning from ink overload. But something had shifted. Marin fell into step beside me. Casual. Comfortable. Like the confrontation hadn't happened. Jessa walked on my other side, still clutching her notebook, still looking anxious, but less apologetic than usual. We headed toward the dining hall without discussion. Natural trajectory after training. Somewhere in that walk, Marin started talking. Jessa pushed her glasses up, studied Marin's legs with the analytical focus she brought to everything.
Why the fishnet pattern specifically? The geometric precision must have taken years to cultivate. There are simpler accumulation patterns that would be equally visible if that's the aesthetic goal.
Marin's dark lips curved.
Simple, darling, it's sexy.
She gestured toward the hallway ahead. 3 cleavers stood near the dining hall entrance. All male. All pretending to have conversations while their eyes tracked Marin's legs with obvious appreciation. Marin didn't answer with words. She strutted forward, hips swaying, each step deliberate. The fishnet patterns on her calves flexed and shifted, caught the hallway light like dark lace against pale skin. One of the cleavers stumbled over his own feet while staring. Marin laughed, low and rich. She blew him a kiss. He blushed crimson, turned away so fast he nearly walked into the wall. Marin looked back at us, that sharp, satisfied smile.
Works beautifully. And the best part? They're terrified of me. Too much visible ink means I'm either catastrophically powerful or catastrophically unstable. Either way,
she flipped her hair.
They keep their distance while appreciating the view. Perfect arrangement.
I looked at my own marks. The ones from near dissolution during the siege, spreading up my arms, across my collarbone. scars that might be permanent. I'd tried very hard not to think about them. Evidence of failure, of losing control, of coming within seconds of dissolving entirely. But Marin didn't see them that way.
I can help you make yours stunning if you want, Liv.
She traced one of my patterns with her eyes, assessing.
The density is already there. The canvas exists, just needs intentional direction instead of chaotic sprawl.
Jessa watched this exchange with thoughtful eyes. Her own marks were minimal, carefully controlled, hidden under long sleeves despite the heat.
I've been trying to minimize mine through meditation techniques and careful casting protocols.
She pushed her glasses up, nervous habit.
But maybe that's just different armor?
She glanced between us.
You make yours visible, I make mine invisible. Liv.
She looked at me with surprising insight.
I think you pretend yours don't exist at all, which might be the most dangerous approach of the three.
The observation hit like cold water. True in ways I didn't want to examine. We reached the dining hall. The noise and heat of hundreds of students eating together. The normal chaos of institutional life. Marin grabbed a tray with casual grace.
Dinner first. Then we're raiding the restricted library. There's a text on advanced amplification Jess has been dying to examine, but lacks the nerve to steal properly.
I don't lack nerve.
Jessa protested.
There are rules about archive access, and I don't want to get in trouble, and...
You lack nerve.
Marin's tone was flat, final.
We're fixing that tonight.
She looked at me, one eyebrow raised. Challenge and invitation combined.
Coming, sweet thing? Or do you have better plans?
I thought about my empty room. About sitting alone with books and theories. About the withdrawal symptoms that would return the moment I stopped moving. About the careful distance I was supposed to maintain. About how much easier it was to breathe when I wasn't alone. I'm coming, I said. Marin's smile was sharp, satisfied.
Excellent, this should be entertaining.
We found a table together. 3 binders who'd somehow formed something that felt like friendship. Eating mediocre academy food and planning minor rule violations. It should have felt simple, uncomplicated. Just a nice thing that happened. But nothing was simple anymore. Not when Marin looked at my ink marks and saw power instead of shame. Not when Jessa said I belonged without needing justification. Not when casual affection felt more dangerous than calculated cruelty because I didn't know how to defend against kindness. Not when making friends required acknowledging I wanted their company instead of just needing tactical advantages. I ate my dinner. Listened to Marin and Jessa argue about archive organization. Tried not to think about how strange it felt to want something without being able to rationalize why. Failed. My hand trembled slightly as I reached for my water glass. The tremor was back. Subtle but present. I glanced down at my forearms. The black marks had darkened, spread slightly. The backlash from my catastrophic casting adding to accumulation I'd been carefully rationing. I needed transfer. Soon. Before I cast again. Before the ink built to dangerous levels. My mind went unbidden to Kale. To his sharp, tactical ash. To the way his magic had felt during that first transfer. Different from Dane, but equally resonant. The pleasure had been immediate. Real. Not the clinical efficiency of amplification training. Not the hollow satisfaction of solo casting. Actual transfer. Actual relief. I wanted it. No, I craved it. The thought should have brought guilt. Should have made me think about Dane crystallizing alone. About the partner I'd left behind. about the man I loved. It did bring guilt, sharp and cutting, but it didn't stop the craving. My channels knew what they needed, didn't care about loyalty or love or complicated feelings, just knew that Kale's ash would soothe this burning, would make the trembling stop, would let me breathe properly again. I wanted it so badly my teeth ached, and I felt terrible for wanting it. But maybe that was the point. Maybe growth meant sitting with both truths simultaneously. Wanting something and feeling guilty about wanting it. Needing something and hating that you needed it. Maybe I'd figure out how to reconcile those feelings eventually. For now, I just kept eating. Kept listening to Marin and Jessa argue. Kept sitting with people who'd chosen to care about me without requiring me to earn it through competence. Kept trying not to think about how badly I needed transfer. Kept failing. The tremor in my hand got worse. I had maybe 2 days before the accumulation became dangerous. Maybe less if I cast again. I'd have to find Kale. Medical would not be enough. Standard rotation couldn't fix the itch, the tremor in my hands. It had to be Kale. The thought made my pulse quicken. Anticipation mixed with shame, mixed with desperate need. I didn't know which feeling mattered most, but I knew which one would win eventually. The craving always won.